Chair, it's a pleasure to return and to be back at the Government Operations Committee. Minister Ellie, like many Canadians, I'm very interested in seeing next week's budget. I'm particularly concerned that your government has abandoned your fiscal anchors. I will remind you that in 2024, the fall economic statement, that these anchors were to A, maintain a declining debt to GDP ratio, and B, uphold Canada's AAA credit rating. In the last few weeks, however, these anchors have seemingly disappeared. The PBO, in his September 25th report, stated, due to persistent budgetary deficits of over 1% of GDP, the federal debt to GDP ratio is projected to increase from 41.7% in 2024-2025, rising above 43% over the medium term. It is no longer projected to be on a declining path. On our AAA credit rating, the Financial Post headline from yesterday asks a clear question. Does Canada still deserve its AAA credit rating? Minister, I would argue that, as the PBO has stated, our debt to GDP ratio will be rising, that the deficit will rise to a minimum of $68.5 billion, not a small number. And that is without adding recent spending commitments from your government. It is valid to wonder, when your budget is tabled on Tuesday, will the reaction from the markets be that Canada still deserves its AAA credit rating? I'm not convinced. The Prime Minister refers to himself as a financial budget expert. However, based on reports from the PBO and other economists, Canadians are having trouble seeing this. So, Minister, on Tuesday, when your government presents its budget, are you purposely wanting it to fail so that an election will be called before Canadians feel the true economic effects of your government?
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for the question. As you know, that this government has committed to balancing its operating budget over the next 3 years. And in this context, the government is undertaking a comprehensive expenditure review to ensure government spending is responsible and deliver results for Canadians. With that phased approach over the next 3 years, organizations have put forward proposals where they can find saving, so we can find those saving and invest in the priorities matter most to Canadians. So that is coming forward, and more, I think it's this question related to Finance Minister who's presenting a budget on November 4th, and I believe this would be a generational budget. There would be investment in Canadian Armed Forces, in infrastructure, and Build Canada Home.
Minister Lightbound, last week the Auditor General released yet another report that outlines your government is failing when it comes to contracts. On the CRA call centre with IBM, your government oversaw the ballooning of this contract from $50 million to $190 million, and results weren't even met for Canadians. Earlier this week, the department said the government had learned a very hard lesson. But, Minister, when Canadians make a typo on their tax filings, the CRA doesn't accept their plea that they've learned their lesson. The CRA goes after them with the full weight of the federal government for the money owed. However, when it is your government that makes contracting errors, doesn't validate invoices, or scrutinize to ensure the money being spent is actually for a service provided, your department believes that learning a hard lesson is enough. On behalf of Canadian taxpayers, Minister, no, it's not enough. Even worse, last week was not the first time the Auditor General had delivered this message. Your government has been consistently criticized by the Auditor General on the lack of scrutiny, validation, and competition for multi-million-dollar contracts. In June, after tabling her audit on GC strategies, the auditor was extremely clear The government need only follow the existing rules on procurement and contracting. It's clear that your government throws value for money out of the window at every single opportunity and instead rewards Liberal friends and insiders when developing contracts. Minister, when will you and your government listen to the Auditor General and finally ensure your departments and agencies follow the existing external contracting rules?
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président, et à travers vous, et merci à...
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to my honourable colleague for the question, through you. I reject the premise of several of her questions. If you look at what the Auditor General said in the most recent report in June, it's clearly said that the rules must be followed. There were no new recommendations made. The Auditor recognized the previous report's recommendations had been implemented. That's what we're doing. We're implemented everything that was submitted by the AG to ensure that we had transparency and competitiveness in our contracting process. Now, regarding specific contracts,